It's been a minute since I did a 2026 NFL mock draft. We've done a lot of criticizing. Now let's actually put our own picks to the test. If you guys are new, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Let's jump right into this. I do make draft content all the time. Below my face is my board. It is solely the players I have listed on the positions I have graded for the show. So if you guys see a player underneath my face outside of Malachi Lawrence, there is a video that describes everything about them, but it is not predictive. These are the players I love in the order I love them. Let's get into this with the number one pick with the New York Giants. I did not select the draft order. This is based on what PFF has, so don't get mad at me for that. You can get mad at them. It boosts the engagement, but let's have a great time here. By all means, call me out if you don't think something is right. You're like, hey, for the Giants, let's just say I take TJ Parker. You could absolutely call me up being like, you fucking idiot. We drafted Abdul Carter. Our edge rush core seems to be pretty solid. That's what I'm talking about. Be a dick. Don't be a dick about it, because I'm here to learn with you guys. We're here to have fun. This is going to be one round. We're going to be probably doing a 3-rounder when I get back from Europe, which is going to be mid-August. But number one overall pick, New York Giants. Here's my thought process with this pick. It's going to be a quarterback. And you're going to say, we just took a first-round quarterback. We traded up to get a first-round quarterback. I understand. I completely understand. However, if we were doing trades, I'd trade back from this number one pick and I'd go Spencer Fano. He is graded. I don't have a video out on it yet because we're grading the tackles and we're going to get that out before I end up heading out for overseas. So I'm super excited for that for y'all. Spencer Fano is someone who I have an absolute love affair for. Right tackle is a needed position for the Giants. But I will say, if you're at number one, they're cleaning house. No one from before is going to be there. And Jackson Dart already looks kind of ass. But of course, it's like the first day. Don't completely overreact. It was still a bad pick 6 with his first pass. But I do think this class has some incredible players. And I think it's very crucial for us to talk about Arch Manning not being in this class. I have him listed on my board at number 10. I love him to death. However, I also know that I just don't think he's coming out in this class. We're going to disqualify him. So without Arch Manning here, we are going to be looking at the next group of guys. Cade Klubnik is the fan favorite, and he's a really solid quarterback. Do not get me wrong. Drew Aller, understandable. But the player who I love the most is Lenore Sellers. I think Sellers has the potential to be the best quarterback that we have seen out of the draft, and at least the past 5 years, which sounds insane, but it's just impossible to find the combination of traits and build that Lenore Sellers has. And his bad tendencies are pretty easy to identify as just bad habits from high school that ended up starting to wane off as the season progressed. So assuming that he continues to get over those issues, I think he's going to be the true gem of the class, something that you can't miss out on. And I wasn't a big Jackson Dart guy. Got a picture with him, which is kind of cool, but I will say Lenore Sellers is far more up my alley. I think he is multiple tiers better. And I think in the right situation with the right QB coach, and also he already deals with a pretty shit O-line. So can kind of deal with that. I think he can end up being an absolute superstar. At number 2 for the Cleveland Browns, Caleb Downs is my next best player available in the class. However, he's not worth the number 2 overall pick. If you are sitting there at number 2, I do think quarterback is on the board. I will say that, maybe Shadur Sanders is going to make you think twice because, again, we're not counting Arch Manning in on this because just realistically, it's also more fun to push ourselves to a point where we don't have an automatic 1-2, whether it would be Sellers, Manning, Sellers. It's down to Cade Klubnik. And, I do technically have another quarterback above Cade, and Aller Cade are like identical grades for me. It's not Garrett Nussmeier. It's actually Fernando Mendoza. I would still not take Mendoza just yet. I think Cade Klubnik's the better, more safe option. However, for the Browns, I do think there are some players that are just absolutely to die for. And one of those is Spencer Fano. I think Spencer Fano is an absolute freak show at offensive tackle. He's a right tackle, so there's certainly some questions as to whether you really need to do that with DeJuan Jones as well as Jack Conklin. But I do think that he is insane. Isaiah World, technically he's listed 6'8". He's apparently, I don't understand because Trev was the one who said this, and it's been kind of confirmed by other people as well, which Trev is kind of PFF. He is 6'5" to 6'6", and at 310, that's so much better. But another player who absolutely could be catapulting up boards. But I will say, if you are sitting here at number 2, most likely someone didn't show enough in the draft. So I will say Cade Klubnik is going to be the choice here because he's the highest floor quarterback out of the ones that are left. So I'll just put it there. I'm not a huge believer in Cade Klubnik, but I understand that sometimes you just need something to go right. And the last time the Browns were legitimately competitive, because they always have a competitive roster, was when Baker Mayfield was there. And Baker, he had a little bit of swag to him, got to admit. But he was a very high floor quarterback. You just know he's going to be a great distributor. And then he was a great leader. And Cade so far has improved every single year. That's exactly what I'm looking for. At number 3 for the Tennessee Titans. And Tennessee, honestly, Peter Woods is not a bad choice for them. Peter Woods is an absolute savage. You get to see what the grades are for my defensive interiors now on my board. Big change up. I also factored in positional value for the rest of the guys on my board. But I mean, I wish the Titans didn't pay Dan Moore, because this would be just super easy Spencer Fano off the bat, right? Like, I love Spencer Fano. Again, he's not featured on my board because I haven't dropped my tackles video, and that would kind of defeat the purpose. But on top of that, I mean, it's just so much easier to implement all the tackles at once. Also allows me to be able to do final adjustments and everything. But you guys don't even care about that part. I do think that going after a high-end edge rusher is super duper crucial. You're gonna have Oladejo. I can't say his first name properly. Oluwafemi Oladejo. He's going to be progressing into year 2, but we kind of know he's a little bit of a lame duck year 1 because he's still so raw. He was transitioning from a linebacker to an edge role last year in college and showed a lot of progression. But again, this is the NFL. It's very difficult to take that day 1 step. I think he'll end up being a really solid edge 2 in year 2. Now we're going to look at the next edges. And I blend my board with realism. I'm not going to go after Malachi Lawrence because I love Malachi. I don't even think he's on here, just FYI. But we might end up, we're going to have to end up doing a placeholder for him. I think he's going to end up being a late day 1. But Reuben Bain Jr. is my selection. All that to say, Reuben Bain Jr. is an absolute savage. I mean, he is 275. He is just an absolute wrecking ball of a guy. And I love that. I mean, he is so strong and he's super young and he makes an impact whether he's inside, on the edge. I mean, you can use him in wide 9. And when he's healthy, he was playing really well unhealthy last year. He is just unbelievably dynamic and he's just a savage. So love Reuben Bain. Caleb Downs would be a dark horse candidate for number 3, but I do think with the need at edge, the value is just notably more. And at number 4, we're with the New York Jets, and I'm actually redoing this because I ended up taking Caleb Downs, just thinking that we could probably try to snipe someone in round 2. Here's the thing. Quarterbacks are just notoriously impossible to snipe down the board at a consistent rate. If you need a quarterback and the talent is there, you go and get them. So I ended up actually vetoing myself on this one. And I swear to God, I wish there was a back button where you could just go back 1 pick, just inch it back a second. And that would be a dream come true. And again, we're not including Arch Manning in this. So if we did, he would have went at number 2 or number 1. So keep that in mind. We're going to be going after Drew Aller here. Some people are going to say, what about Garrett Nussmeier? And I respect that. I mean, honestly, he might be the next selection, but let's talk about Drew Aller first. So Drew, very similar to Cade Klubnik, is someone who improves every single year. Drew has improved notably more every year. Cade has always been kind of the high floor guy who has a good athletic profile, not an elite arm, but kind of like a really solid processor, and has just improved, inch by inch. It's good. I mean, that's what you need, right? And he has such a solid floor that he's not going to be an issue for a team. Drew Aller is somebody that could easily be an issue for a team if he doesn't continue to develop at the rate that he has, but he has those good jaw-dropping throws. He actually makes the right decision a majority of the time, and it's been the placement that was his big Achilles heel coming into last year, and his throwing mechanics were just god-awful, and he's been working on it year over year, improving every single time, and has gotten more precise and more productive every single time. He could have been a first-round pick. He was probably, I almost put a 90% chance he would have been taken before Jackson Dart was in this past year. So I think he would have been a first-round pick. He's young, has a crazy arm. Especially when you look at what Jackson Dart's resume is, I will say Drew Aller is a little bit more awe-inspiring. So Drew Aller ended up deciding to return to school. But on top of this, Drew Aller for the Jets specifically, he has a lot of youth to him. He has good mobility. He's shown some pretty good durability as well. And he has just an absolute cannon. On top of that, his former left tackle, Olu Fashanu, is there. You have some instant chemistry there with your offensive line, and I love that. So Drew Allar's the choice. Again, I was like trying to convince myself for Caleb Downs, but I didn't have the heart to continue through with it. At number 5 for the New Orleans Saints, I combine my board with realism. So keep this in mind because I love Malachi Lawrence. I love Christian Miller. Christian Miller or Peter Woods would be a great choice at 5. I'm not the biggest Garrett Nussmeier guy, but if he's here at number 5 and his dad is part of the front office, they're taking him. If you're at number 5, shit hit the fan. And that means your lovely round 2 pick from last year is no bueno. And if he is no bueno, it is time to get somebody who is. And that's going to be Garrett Nussmeier in the eyes of Daddy Nussmeier. Now, Garrett has some of the best throws out of the class. If you look at the highlight reel throws, Garrett could be number 1. No, Lenoris is number 1. But that's because Lenoris is an absolute animal when it comes to his athletic potential. I mean, he just moving like he's 120 pounds when he's over 240. But not to glaze Lenoris, for Garrett, the throws are just insane. And the problem is they're a little too few and far between. And I think he uses touch more. I think people get enamored by touch. I think his arm is weaker than people give it credit for. But here's my biggest issue with Garrett Nussmeier. And maybe not the biggest, second biggest. He's 6'2", 200 pounds. Why is no one talking about this? They're like, oh, he's slender framed. And then just like leave it behind. When has that ever been the case with any quarterback outside of Garrett Nussmeier? I don't know what this propaganda is. And again, I'm not doing this to shit on Garrett Nussmeier. This is more of a commentary on the community for media in general. We will crap on someone like Trevor Lawrence was, I believe, 210, 215 pounds at 6'6". If you look at the ratios, Garrett Nussmeier is not too far off in terms of the height to weight ratio. And no one's talking about it. Granted, Trevor, we had to find issues, and that was one of them. But every time a quarterback doesn't have elite size, or, I mean, hell, even some people will talk about Cade Klubnik being undersized at 6'2", 210, but not a soul will spend, besides me at this point. I don't know. I hope other people are. But nobody's spending time talking, why is this guy 200 pounds? And you might say, well, he's not 200 pounds. He doesn't look 200 pounds. I agree he doesn't look it. Why would LSU say he is? And he's been reported at 200 pounds. It's like, I don't understand. So I will say that's my issue with Garrett Nussmeier. But if he's here and the high-end throws are what people buy into, and if your dad's on the roster or in the front office, there's going to be a little bit of nepotism there. And I'm not saying it's going to turn out poorly. I'm saying that the odds are not nearly as stacked as what people want to say they are. And feel free to disagree. I know 99% of people do. But Garrett Nussmeier also has a very erratic processor. I believe it was his first year starting. It happens, right? That's something that will improve. And he will end up higher on my board than where he is now. But people are neglecting, with a big N, neglecting the frame. And it bothers me because I don't understand why. Like, I get it. The arm is cool. The flashy throws are cool. But why are we applying certain criteria, certain criticisms to some people, but not others? I just don't get it. Number 6. So that's a long-winded way of getting here. We're going to go Caleb Downs for the Carolina Panthers. Defensive interior would be interesting. They've got Tershawn Wharton in the offseason. I don't think it's as dire as maybe I would suggest. And this is a good defensive interior class. I love my boy Mike Renner. Love Mike to death. He says it's a bad defensive interior class. I'm going to heavily disagree on that. I will say that I think the safety class is thinner. And you're talking about the second best player in the entire draft here, available at 6. You take him and have an identity for that defense. And number 7 for the Las Vegas Raiders. I mean, it's just, I find it hard for the Vegas Raiders outside of their defense to be here at number 7. I do think, especially with the current, like the recent news, that defensive interior is on the menu. You might go back to Clemson. And Peter Woods is an absolute savage. I mean, I do not care whether you think Peter Woods or Christian Miller is better. That's perfectly fine. You can believe Peter Woods is better because he is so damn close to Christian Miller. I don't care. Like it is so close, and I respect that. Enough people have Peter Woods so high that he is going to be a disruptor. He's an elite block shedder. He's great against the run. He has the flashes as a pass rusher that I think need to improve. But Peter Woods is a monster, and he's worth it at number 7. So I'm going to take him there. At number 8 for the Indianapolis Colts, something also hit the fan if they're sitting here at number 8. I think they're just too good of a team on paper. I mean, even with poor quarterback play, like they just have too much going on to be at number 8. That's just my honest opinion. I think any quarterback would have success, at least to some degree in the offense, that would get them above pick 8. Oh my God, we can't wait to talk about pick number 9. I haven't, this is a live reaction to the overall layout of this, the whole overall draft order. But for the Colts, this is where I was talking about my love affair with Spencer Fano. This is where he's going to go. Braden Smith up for a contract this year. Also dealt with some mental concerns, some mental health issues this past year where I believe he ended up considering retirement. So regardless, I'm not going to say that devalues you as a player, but at the same time, I mean, I know it's insensitive, but the best ability is availability, right? And if you're up for a contract and you're talking about $20 million plus a year, which is, it's what you're going to get when you're getting paid, what Braden Smith's getting paid. You're being paid to be a starting tackle in the NFL. If Dan Moore can make it, he can make it. That's definitely something that you need to factor in. So I'm going to go Spencer Fano here, who I have as a blue chip tackle. I mean, he is an absolute mauler. I mean, first off, I don't really believe in this, the PFF overall grade, because there's so many players, and I'll throw a little bit of shade here because that's what y'all love the most about me. But I'm talking about like Corey Robinson, if I'm not mistaken, the former Georgia Tech tackle. I could toss in, Brian Parker, and now he's at NC State. Just these guys who have super low pressure quantities that have high overall grades. They just don't live up to it half of the time, more than half of the time. And it bothers me because I want to love these players. Spencer Fano lives up to it. He is nasty, like with a capital N, nasty, all caps, nasty. This guy is a finisher as a blocker. So I love him to death, has great arm length. He's honestly super proficient as a pass blocker as well. You see the grade itself. I mean, he's just built to be awesome. The weird thing about him is he's 302 pounds. And you're like, get that weight up, bro. I will say that is true. I want him to be at 310 plus. I mean, ideally 320, but 310 is acceptable. Here's the thing about Spencer, and this is why context is super key, and why I understand why some people don't criticize Garrett Nussmeier for his frame. It's just the fact that nobody is what's bothering me. Spencer Fano carries 302 like he's 315. There are certain players that just carry their weight noticeably better. There are 325 pounders that act like they're 280 when it comes to their power, when it comes to their anchor. Spencer Fano doesn't do that. Neither does Caleb Lamu. So shout out to him too. We'll be talking about him soon. But Spencer Fano, he plays much larger than he is. There's not really a debate as to whether he'd play guard or tackle because he has really good arm length. He's just a damn good player. At number 9 for the Dallas Cowboys, a lot to love around here. And no, I'm not saying that to get Jeremiah Love. I like Jeremiah Love a lot. I mean, I believe is he visible to you guys? No, he's just below it. I mean, I feel like a dick that he's just there. At number 19, he's the top of my 75.5 graded category. And that's a weighted grade again. I purposely drop running back grade. It's understandably why. I fell in love with a couple running backs to an extreme degree in Jaheim White and Damon Claiborne that just don't really match the same way that everyone else thinks about him, but that's okay. I mean, I owe you guys honesty, not comfortability. But for the Dallas Cowboys, if they're sitting here at number 9, there's a big ass issue going on. Like, they have the completed offensive line, if you think about it. And that's what's kind of crazy to me. You got the multiple Tylers on the offensive line, Booker, Smith, and Guyton. Now, right tackle technically still would be available. So is left tackle, to where I'd almost draft another first-round offensive lineman. Remember how the Cowboys built their offensive line. First-round picks everywhere, and they were all damn good. Now, you could get Caden Proctor and put him back next to Tyler Booker. I don't think Caden Proctor's remotely ready. I do think that if you look Isaiah World, Caleb Tiernan, and then where the fuck is what? Trev. Caleb Lamu down at 156. That is 100% not reflective of what he thinks. I'm almost guaranteeing that. That's wild to me. But it's between World Tiernan, who I think Tiernan's one of the best offensive linemen I've studied. But he is, some people consider him to be a potential guard, which makes me a little bit worried. Same thing with Lamu, though. I mean, these are two guys who I do think have that arm length concern. I honestly still think Tiernan is going to be a pure tackle. Tiernan was an absolute monster, 6'7", 330, and that's why he's probably not a guard either. But look at this. I mean, I don't like to look at the pressures and stuff, but you look at this, was that 10 pressures plus 3 sacks, so 13 to overall pressures, 3 of them leading to sacks all year. This guy was just unbelievable. And the last time an unbelievable talent at left tackle came out of Northwestern, they became a franchise left tackle for the Chargers that they still haven't paid. Idiots. But I'm going to go after Caleb Tiernan here. It's the next blue chip tackle that I have. Kick Tyler Guyton to right tackle. There has to be something wrong with the offensive line if you are sitting at number 9. Kick Guyton to where he belongs at right tackle. Have Tiernan at left tackle. You have a completed offensive line. Beebe in the middle. Both Booker and Smith at guard. I just don't understand. It's why I got so bugged when they took Tyler Booker, because it was just like I wanted him to go after a left tackle so badly. And now we get to have that opportunity. At number 10 for the Cleveland Browns, already went after a quarterback with Cade Klubnik. So, I mean, technically I could just do that to show you it, but it's a good way for those of y'all who are watching and just skipping around to see what picks had happened. But at number 10 overall via Jacksonville's pick, again, we're not doing trades here either. I will be looking at the edge position. And Keldrick Falk, TJ Parker, both guys who will be selected in this range. However, I think there's another player that we need to discuss, and that's LT Overton. LT Overton, I think, will eclipse TJ Parker and Keldrick Falk. I have LT Overton almost identical grade, if I'm not mistaken. I'm like double checking myself over here. Yeah, literally almost a quarter of a point higher than Keldrick Falk. Keldrick Falk could end up being a top 3 pick. I mean, legitimately, this guy is ridiculously talented. So is LT Overton. TJ Parker, I'm still coming around to him, but I still respect that he should be in this range. I'm going to go LT Overton, and here's why. Look at what the Browns have had success with and where they've really shown their draft priority. Well, you look at, obviously, Myles Garrett's their big success. Number 1 pick. Makes sense, right? 280 pounds. Then you look, who's their next starting edge rusher? Isaiah McGuire, my boy. And he's also larger in size. So you just see what they're starting to put out there. And the beautiful thing is that, well, all 3 of these guys are 265 plus. Keldrick Falk 270, TJ Parker 265, LT Overton in the 280 range. But here's the thing, LT Overton's a little bit more of a freak. And I've seen more progression from LT Overton than I have from TJ Parker and from Keldrick Falk. LT Overton was a little bit underwhelming, and he just continued to get better and better and better to the point where when I'm not watching LT Overton, I get enamored by LT Overton. So he's going to be in my selection there at pick 10. If you want to go with any of the other guys, I perfectly respect it. At number 11 for the Seattle Seahawks, it would be kind of wild for them to be here at pick number 11. But I do think quarterback would be on their menu. I just don't think I have the balls to take Fernando Mendoza or John Mateer at this point. I think they would be the type to say, we're going to stick it with Sam. We don't want to get, would it be quarterback 5? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, QB 5 at the moment. At pick number 11, QB 5 is pretty tough. And there are right tackles available. Now, here's my issue. Francis Mauigoa, I think he's a guard. I mean, there's just some plays where I'm just like, ooh, not good. Now, I look at Isaiah World. He's a left tackle, but someone who I still have a lot of faith in. The problem is the right tackle spot is kind of barren for technically both the Seahawks as well as the draft at the moment. Like, looking through this, Riley Mahlman's not good enough. Jennings Dunker, I haven't gotten to yet. Emil Wagner is a huge projection. Dude's 293, so we're talking about size. So that's a big issue. And then we got left tackle, and then again, a guard, someone who I consider a guard. I just don't like how this is turning out for the Seahawks. Now, could they end up going after the defensive interior side? and just saying we're going to continue stacking up, get some beef here. We'll talk about Christian Miller. It's possible. I mean, having an unstoppable defensive interior sounds kind of nice to me, but I'm not going to pull that trigger. I will bounce back because quarterback 5 at pick number 11 is possible, and I will stick to my guns. I do have the balls to do this. Fernando Mendoza is awesome. He has great processing, and it's my fault on my quarterback video. I have a grade called playmaking. It's really versus pressure, like your decision making versus pressure. When the play breaks down, how do you respond? And, it's led to a lot of arguments over something that is honestly my fault. So I'll take that on the chin. But Fernando Mendoza handles pressure, handles breakdowns of plays better than most. I mean, better than probably the majority of the class. He just makes good decisions under pressure at a higher rate than some other people. And I will say, Cal's offense did not allow him to have very many plays where he didn't have chaos going on. So I will say that as well. But I think Fernando Mendoza is awesome. And if you do want someone who will have an athletic profile and a big play arm similar to Sam Darnold and who can work in a Kubiak system, I think it's Fernando Mendoza. And you see what Indiana's done. Sorsby's done a good job. He's at Cincinnati now, but he's a good quarterback. You look at Rourke, and now you can look at Mendoza. They're going to have a track record of really good development of quarterbacks, and I personally think that's worth taking a shot on. At number 12 for the New England Patriots, you can talk about a weapon here, and Jordan Tyson's a baller. I mean, I would not blame you. Edge rusher is kind of dire as well. But that's something where I would end up trying to wait for it in round number 2. There's a lot of good receivers in this class. There's not many great receivers. And the great receiver I see in this class is Jordan Tyson, who, I mean, he is the X receiver you're looking for. 6'2", 195, extremely polished. Just someone that you want on your team. So we're going to go after Jordan Tyson at number 12. At number 13 for the Los Angeles Rams, you guys know me. I love to pull that cornerback trigger, and Avion Trell's lurking here. I do love it, but let's see maybe some other options as well. I do think that offensive tackle for the long run certainly is on the board. And you look at Isaiah World, someone who I think should be selected in the next 5 to 10 picks. Definitely someone who we should be thinking about. But I also look at Caleb Lamu here as someone who I really, really like. And I think he can really hold up at left tackle. And talent-wise, he is my next best available. Him and Isaiah World are just trying to go in a fist fight for who's actually better. And so I really like Caleb Lamu, and I'm going to go after him here. I don't know why the PFF board has him so low. It blows my mind. But Caleb Lamu, for a lot of people I know, is their tackle number 1. My only concern is he's 6'4", right? Or he's 6'6". The guy does not look 6'6". He looks 6'4". But he looks all of 304 pounds. He is very, very compact. And he doesn't have the longest arms in the world. But again, similar to what I was talking about earlier with Caleb Tiernan, arm length isn't everything. Some guys operate very well because they're just smart and they're tactical. And they know how to change leverage when they are at the disadvantage with length. And Caleb Lamu is one of those players. I think he's a true starter day one. And for the Rams, you can use him pretty much at any position, whether it's interior or outside, in case you do want to continue having Alaric Jackson be the long-term answer there. Or if Caleb Lamu just doesn't work at tackle, you have other options there. Again, that right tackle spot is where you're looking at. But with Caleb Lamu at 13, I think the value is good enough because spoiler alert, I think Caleb Lamu is going to be sitting here around number 9 overall on my board. What's really tempting is if Caleb Lamu were here for my Pittsburgh Steelers, because Broderick Jones is absolute ass cheeks. I'm going to just say it. The guy sucks. And it bothers the hell out of me. You know what also bothers the hell out of me? The fact that we can't draft tackles. I mean, I love, and again, it does suck that he got hurt, right? But Troy Fontenot, I wanted him to be a guard. The dude just ended, everyone was like, he's a guard, he's a guard, he's a guard. Measures 34-inch arms. He's a tackle, he's a tackle, he's a tackle. You don't just think someone's a guard because of arm length. That's just not the case. Everyone's like, oh, well, I mean, well, he's probably a guard, but like, there's a chance he could potentially play tackle. It doesn't matter your arm length if your mindset is his play style fits better as a guard. And it wasn't solely because of the arms. I'm sorry, it's not. We just wanted it to be, right? And we all do. I mean, who doesn't like being optimistic? But I don't even know if we have him that we can trust. And that bothers me. So I'm looking at quarterback and I'm looking at tackle here. Here's the problem with quarterback. And again, Arch Manning not considered in this. So technically, if Arch comes out, I mean, we'd be talking about Fernando Mendoza. I'd be all on board for that. But who's the next best? John Mateer. Do I want to take QB 6/7 here at 14? Is the quarterback class that good? No, it's not. And I really like this quarterback class. This is my team as well. So I actually feel responsible for the fact that I want to place a quarterback here to the Steelers. I just do Arch Manning just to piss off everyone. But no, obviously, we discussed at the beginning, Arch Manning is not considered in this for, logical reasons. But if we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. And I'm not going to whiff on another quarterback just because we need it. Sam Levitt's not ready. Carson Beck is going to be a day 2 to 3 pick. Nico Yamaleava, I doubt even comes out. Taylon Green, he's someone you can take on day 3. Kevin Jennings is 5'2". Same thing with Diego Pavia. Dante Moore hasn't played in a full year. Mateer is the next guy. That's scary because at 14, you want someone who's a little bit more polished that maybe fell because they're like Bo Nix, a little bit of a lower ceiling, maybe a little bit like older. That's not available for us. So you know what I am going to do? I'm going to do the right thing and draft a good tackle. Isaiah World has some penalty issues, but this dude's going from Nevada to Oregon, and he already is pretty damn polished going into Oregon. Do you know how hard it is to be polished at Nevada as a tackle? He has a chance to be awesome. A true top 10 pick. So Isaiah World is going to be the selection there. We're going to take a shot on a quarterback and have him compete for the year after. Again, I'm not going to force a pick in the first because we need it. That's how you continue needing things. Did we need a quarterback after Kenny Pickett? We needed an upgrade to be legitimately competitive. We still did. So we spent a first round pick on something that we needed to replace. And we did. So there's a reason why you don't force it, but had a little tackle run right there. At number 15 for the Dolphins, I would have considered Isaiah World here as well, but they've done a pretty good job trying to patch everything up and, get your offensive tackle here, get your offensive tackle there. Back-to-back years in the second round, drafting guys who are both left and right tackles with Patrick Paul as well as Jonas Savania. So you guys are looking like you're trying your best to fix that, and I respect that a lot. It looks like things are about to get blown up. That's just how the cookie's going to crumble. I do think I'm going to go the boring route and go after a corner here. Jermon McCoy, my concern with him is his health. Like we saw this past year with a player who also was considered, top end coming into the year, who was a physical corner in Will Johnson. He fell to the second because people were worried about his knee. Jermon McCoy ended up tearing his ACL in January. Does that mean it's a death sentence? No. But I will say right now, I don't feel comfortable with him coming back this early and putting up a season that would say, I am corner 1. Avion Terrell has that chance. So does Mansour Delane. And looking at Mansour's build, 6'1", 191, it's a little bit more on par with what you're going to be looking for from a true boundary than taking the risk with Avion Terrell. So I'm going to go after Mansour Delane. I think he's the best corner in the class. He's number 14 overall on my board. This is a team that does need to continue improving that corner core. And Mansour is someone who I didn't like at Virginia Tech. I see the flashes and I love the fit. I mean, the second half of the season, in my opinion, was a lot better for him, and he showed a lot more flashes, and I think he can be truly awesome here at LSU. At number 16, we have the Chicago Bears. And TJ Parker's here. It's going to be kind of hard to say no to that. Jeremiah Love would probably be the best upgrade at the moment. But this is also a pretty solid running back class with guys like Damon Claiborne that I'd feel very comfortable with. So I'm going to go TJ Parker out of realism. Keldrick Falk requires, of all people, I will say Dennis Allen would really love Keldrick Falk, but he also would love TJ Parker. It's another one of those situations where what flavor of ice cream do you want? And for me, I think the larger majority would believe in TJ Parker before Keldrick Falk. So I'm going to go with that route, even though technically I feel more inclined to go after Keldrick Falk. But I do think TJ Parker would logically be selected before him. At number 17 for the Arizona Cardinals. Another team that could look at offensive tackle for sure. Caden Proctor is an intriguing option here. CC Mauigoa, but again, I think of Mauigoa as a guard. That's kind of why I'm kind of pushing him down the board. It's a weird position to be in for the Cardinals because if you're at 17, you're just too far down to draft a quarterback. There's not enough targets, in my opinion, to draft a first-round wide receiver. Tight end, you got that booked. Running back, you're trying, but I mean, it's actually not a bad idea if you don't end up seeing legit progression from, why am I forgetting, Trey Benson. Jeremiah Love is here. That's a super dark horse pick. Tackle, absolutely, but we've been taking tackles like it's hotcakes. Like we've been flipping them. And interior offensive line, I don't think that's the precedent here at number 17. Corner, you got Will Johnson, right? I do think that at least for the next 3 to 4 years, maybe more, you have that secure because you have a lot of good talent there. Now you have the bigger physical corner. Safety, I don't think that's a precedent at this moment. Dylan Thieneman, definitely worth it. But you could talk about Christian Miller here. Just continue bolstering the defensive interior along with Walter Nolan. It can work, and it would work really well. Almost to the point where I'd actually do it. Keldrick Falk's the other one I'd mention in there, but I do think that's giving up a little bit too early on D-Rob. I'm going to go Christian Miller. It's a top 5 player still on my board who deserves a lot of love, and you're pairing him up with Walter Nolan as well. So talk about 2 punchy, dangerous, quick winning defensive interior players, and especially in a division where they were haunted by Aaron Donald, and now also you talk about Braden Fisk, Kobe Durant. It's not Kobe. I'm doing Kobe Turner. I'm like Kobe Durant. Like what the hell? That was one I pulled out of my ass. Kobe Turner. Like you just talk about that Rams front, especially. It's very vaunted. Like this is a division that understands the value of quick winning, high potential defensive interiors. At number 18 for the Minnesota Vikings, Jeremiah Love sitting for the picking. That's kind of baller, and something I don't see very often. Now, you talk about Jermod McCoy. Again, the corner core does continue to need replenishment. You guys have been patching it like Band-Aids, but trust me as a Steelers fan, just take it from me. Patching things like Band-Aids or with Band-Aids does not solve the problem. You either need to air it out or stitch it up. And snitches get stitches, but I'll say stitches do a better job than bandages at keeping something that's kind of a gaping wound to be kind of sealed up and, not allow the infection of a freaking horrible defense slip in. And that's why you guys have been kind of relying on Brian Flores to make your corner core with the amount of pressure he's been given. They look a little bit better than they are, in my opinion. So this is where I'm going to look at the corner core. I know you guys say safety is more of an issue. You guys are going to get it. The value, in my opinion, is not there. So I'm going to look at Avian Terrell. The problem is he doesn't have the size profile that would actually really work. It fits the Isaiah Rodgers profile, but Jermod McCoy, I think realistically, now you might end up saying, okay, well, you skipped on him at number 15. This is different because of the fact that you are trying to get away and there's not really another option that provides what Jermod McCoy should for the Vikings. So knock on wood, he's healthy. I also do think Mansour Delane's just better. Number 19 for the Denver Broncos. I mean, Jeremiah Love, if they ended up missing out on one of the most ridiculous running backs that I've ever studied in Amari and Hampton, and they still find a way to get Jeremiah Love, yes, they got RJ Harvey, but I mean, it's so hard to say no to Love at this point. Love is a damn good back. With running back position valued into it, he's still worth this pick. I'm not going to do it because it's a second round pick. You can't just say, fuck you to a second round pick. But what I can do is go after a top 10 player on my board, and that's Kenyon Sadiq. And you guys wanted a joker at tight end. This is it. 6'3", 245, dangerous after the catch, lightning quick, and just one of those guys who is jaw dropping. We're going to go Kenyon Sadiq at 19. At number 20, we have the Houston Texans, and I would have loved Christian Miller or Peter Woods to be here. My next best player is Mekhi Lemon. Not a bad choice, but I do think you kind of get in the way of the chance for your second and third round pick from this past year to garner a good target share if you have a first round pick coming into the fray. So I do think the Iowa State kids deserve a little bit more of a runway for them to take over and be the true leaders in the receiving core with Nico Collins. So I would just say that creates a little bit too much competition and not enough opportunity. And you could talk about offensive tackle here. Caden Proctor scares the shit out of me. If you guys can't tell, he is someone who I'm genuinely terrified to take. Now, it's realistic that he'd go in this range, but you also took a left tackle in this past draft in the second round. So I would say Maui Goa is a better option because you could still kick him into guard and see what happens. And it's not a bad idea. At this point, it's not. And based on how much you're spending on the defense, I do think this is going to be a very offensively focused pick. Tight end, you're not going to do it. Quarterback, no. Wide receiver, no. Running back is possible. Jeremiah Love, I'm loving it. Hopefully I don't get sued by McDonald's for that. I'm going Jeremiah Love here at number 20. I do have 2 running backs above him, but Jeremiah Love, assuming he takes the progression step that he should, will be the number 1 running back in the class for me. I'm really hoping he does take that step in terms of the consistency of breaking tackles, but realistically, there's no other running back that should go above him. He's a freak athlete, and he has those plays that are just like, crazy good. 21, Green Bay Packers. The question is, are they going to end up paying Rasheed Walker as well? If they don't, then Caden Proctor is just like sitting here right on the money. That's exactly what you're looking for. But if they don't, you got Keldrick Falk sitting here, and most likely you fired your defensive coordinator, or your D-line coach from this past year, and you guys kept the D-line pretty the same. I'm just going to be honest, Keldrick Falk is right on the money in terms of what you guys are looking for. And so I think the value is too good. We're going to go Keldrick Falk here at 21. At 22 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Caden Proctor is still here. It bothers me, but again, we don't have trades here, so it does kind of make sense. Buccaneers, you guys had an intriguing draft, to say the least. I do think edge takes priority. And looking at the edges available, this is where I think you're going to go after somebody who's going to be a higher floor. I love Malachi Lawrence. He's not included in this, but I also don't think he goes before this player, even when we're going to continue seeing him rise up. He's going to be a late draft guy. I'm going to get a ton of shit for it for the next probably 7 months. Or 6 months. I think it's only 6 months until we hit prime draft season. So David Bailey is the one I'm looking at here. He is 250 pounds, and he is just damn good at everything. Unbelievably smart. He kind of was used as a linebacker as well. So he's just somebody who knows every phase of the game in a way that I really love. So we're going to go after David Bailey here at 22. At 23 for the Los Angeles Chargers. One of the teams that don't need Caden Proctor. Hell, at number 20, we're going to see a quick stretch here where Caden Proctor is going to continue to slip. It's interesting to say the least. But the Chargers specifically, obviously not looking for the quarterback room, the wide receiver room. The tight end room is possible, but Gadsden does look really solid. Max Clare is someone who I would consider for this running back. They just solved it in the first round this past year. Interior offensive line, I got hiccups. I would say you could look at a center. Unless they're like creme de la creme, you don't take one this high. That's just the general like focus of this all. Like you just don't do that. So boundary corner is not a bad idea based on the value at the moment. But I will say we've been trying to go after a defensive interior and edge rusher for a hot minute now. I do think going after someone who could be a plug in the middle, like Caleb Banks could be that. Lee Hunter also could be that. Now, you could also, like Tim Keenan's perfect for this, but if you want to wait a round or two, Tim Keenan's going to be your guy to be essentially your Puna Ford. So, do you want to go after the high potential of Caleb Banks, who has 35+ inch arms? I think the Chargers do. So, let's end up going after someone who could be the plug in the middle if you want him to be, but also has the freakish potential to be something much, much more. At 24 for the Commanders, talking about a team that freaking patches every single thing with a Band-Aid. They're going after the all-time like ancient edge core. I don't get that. I don't get that at all. So I'm looking at the players that I think should be considered in the first round. And I will just say Danny Dennis Sutton would probably be taken before Malachi Lawrence for Dan Quinn. And I think that's fair. Dennis Sutton is an absolute monster. And the thing is, he's continuing to develop year over year. He hasn't reached it just yet, but now he has a chance to be the true one. And if he does what I think he should do, this is where he will be taken. So we're going to go after Danny Dennis Sutton at number 24. At number 25, we have the Cincinnati Bengals. And with Caden Proctor just lurking here, it's just so hard to say no, but Orlando Brown's there. You can't, he's going to fall to the Niners. That's what's just crazy to me. You still have one of the biggest or the most ass interior offensive lines that I've seen. It is kind of sad. And I do have a breakdown for the Bengals up on the show. But what scares me is your boundary corner situation more than what anybody else wants to talk about. So I'm going to go after Avion Terrell here because he's too damn good to continue slipping. He's my number 16 player. He might be on the smaller side, but he is feisty, and that hasn't stopped you from taking thin or small corners / DBs. So we're going to go Avion Terrell out of Clemson. At number 26 for the Rams, I guess we could have ended up passing on Caleb Lamu to get after Caden Proctor here. But again, I'm terrified of Caden Proctor. I just think he's multiple years away from being where he should be. And I think he'll eventually get to where he's a top 10 pick, but it's just such a big stretch. But again, we already went after offensive tackle. Defensive line secured. Linebacker, I'm not going to take a linebacker for a team that doesn't value linebacker. So it is kind of that corner position, which I wish Avion Terrell were here because that would make this a lot easier. Davison Igbinoza would probably be my next best. Preston Hodge is someone who's going to be a slot versatile player. I think Igbinoza will continue to develop in terms of stopping his freaking tendencies to freaking grab players. But Igbinoza's smart. He's extremely talented. Former 5-star, obviously. It's Ohio State of all things. But Igbinoza, Iggy, is an absolute savage. 6'2", 193. Unbelievably physical. And if he just stops grabbing as much, he is perfect for the Rams. And you talk about Jalen Ramsey presence in terms of that physicality. It's what you need in this division. I think Davison Igbinoza brings it. At 27 for the Detroit Lions, again, my next best is Mekhi Lemon. Obviously would not fit this team because that's a very similar role to an Amon-Ra. But Jaheim White, and then Noah Thomas. Noah Thomas is not bad, but you spent so many multiple third-round picks to get somebody who I think would have a similar role to Noah Thomas. And, Chase Roberts, not going to toss him in there, neither DeMond Claiborne. So we're continuing to go down the list. And it's for me, I want to go after another edge. And it's Max Llewellyn, and then it's Malachi Lawrence. But Max Llewellyn gets me a little bit more excited because he feels more like a Detroit Lion than anything else. And I do think this team needs to continue loading up in that edge core because you need that rotation regardless. So how the hell is Max Llewellyn not in here? I know that Trev ended up talking about him. What? That's wild to me. I know that Trev ended up talking about Max Llewellyn. Well, I'm going to take him anyways. He's a technique king, and he's awesome. So who do we want to give some love to? We're going to go back to the placeholders. We're going to let R. Mason Thomas get some love here. He's going to get the placeholder for number 26 on my board, Max Llewellyn, edge rusher out of Iowa. At number 28 for the Niners, we're going Caden Proctor all day. I don't care if he have to sit his ass for a year or two. Just the potential is too good to not sit him behind Trent Williams. You just got to pull that trigger. At 29 for the Kansas City Chiefs, they've done a good job overall, just making their team pretty damn balanced. I would say safeties on the board here are Dylan Thieneman. I do think getting a top-tier safety who in his true freshman year absolutely balled out, and of course, with the team that kind of did suffer overall last year in Purdue, ended up having a pretty down year. He's going to Oregon, and Oregon knows how to polish up defensive backs. So I'm going to go after Dylan Thieneman because it would have made my decision for the Eagles a lot easier if he were on the board, and he is not. Now, some people are going to say go Francis Mauigoa. I respect that, but they drafted so many high potential offensive linemen that fit Stout a bit better than CC Mauigoa, who is probably a guard, that I don't feel like I should do that. What I do think is that tight ends on the board, and you look at Max Clare, in my opinion, down the board, Justin Jolly, Max Kitzelman, would love for him to have been mentioned in here, and I do not see him. The tight end, Traore from Mississippi State, the dude's an absolute savage as a vertical threat. But Max Clare is the one who I'm considering here. The problem is you guys kind of like a little bit of size to your tight end. So I do think someone like Miles Kitzelman will be your option down the board. So if your guys are not going to be going that route, where would you go? And I mean, that's the $1 million question. I do think defensive interior is a position where you guys have kind of neglected it. I mean, you got some good edge rusher talent, but I will say with someone like Lee Hunter, who is essentially the same amount of punchiness as Moro Ojomo, that's a bit of a stretch. I love Moro Ojomo, and I love Lee Hunter too. I would say Zane Durant's a little bit more in the build of a Moro Ojomo. I mean, he is sub 300 pounds. Very, very similar actually to Milt. I mean, I'm talking about Morrow because he's the one who's on the team, but Milton is the one you're really trying to replace. Zane Durant is a perfect fit for the Eagles. I don't think he'd get to their second round pick. I do think this would be a position where I would try to trade out, and that's what Howie does anyway. But if I'm just going to be honest, Lee Hunter would be where I'd go before Zane Durant. And I'd prefer just to say, screw this smaller build. I'm going to get someone who's still explosive and actually has some extra frame to him. Lee Hunter is one of the smartest defensive interiors in the draft as well. I'm actually going to go after Lee Hunter here and just continue developing that defensive interior with Jalen Carter. And then we'll see what they end up doing with Jordan Davis. At 31 for the Baltimore Ravens, Lee Hunter would have been a high selection for me here, even though they've done a great job in their own right of addressing the whole entire situation. Interior offensive line is not a bad idea. You got Francis Mauigoa. I don't think that's the wrong thing to do. They addressed edge rusher this past class. I do think a bigger wide receiver also is not a bad idea, though. And speaking of, you got Mekhi Lemon here. You can talk about Carnell Tate, Nick Harbor. Absolutely. But please, for the love of God, PFF, man. I pay for this shit. And then they let me down. PFF really likes to let me down. But I was going to talk about my number 12 player on my board, Noah Thomas. And to be fair, I might substitute it out because there are some guys who might go above him. It's just so BS. He's not at Texas A&M. He's out of Georgia now, formerly Texas A&M. But it's just like, guys, we have Trevor Pina in here, but we don't have Noah Thomas. And that breaks my soul. That breaks my soul, man. It's okay. It is what it is. We'll end up doing J. Michael Sturdivant as a placeholder. I'm going to do it, but we're going to go after Noah Thomas. He's at 6'5", 200 to 205 pounds, and he is fluid as all get out. I think that he is one of the most underrated players in the entire country, and he's great at contested catches. He's extremely fluid as a route runner. He's just somebody who is more dynamic than his body ever says it should be, and that is incredible. So my number 12 player in the class, Noah Thomas, going at number 31. J. Michael Sturdivant's not a bad option for the Ravens, but I just would not advise it at 31. At 32 and ending this off, we had the Buffalo Bills again. I did not end up making the draft order. You talk about Anthony Hill here, and honestly, you could have ended up taking him for either the Eagles or for the Ravens. The Eagles, of course, assuming that you end up putting Campbell to full-time edge as time goes on. That's my vision for him. But like Anthony Hill's just kind of hard to say no to at this point because of best player available. I don't think the linebacker is as pressing of an issue as maybe some other people want it to be. A running back absolutely could be, but again, that's one of the positions I think you can end up taking your foot off the gas pedal. Defensive back, they addressed very heavily this past year. Edge rusher, I think they did a good job kind of getting some pieces in there for sure. So I like what you're doing. Wide receiver, you could talk about some of these guys, but I also think that you can continue playing the money ball card. So I'm going to go after best player available, and it's somebody who I have not graded yet, but people think is worth a top 10 pick. And I've seen him plenty of times because I love watching people versus Texas's defense. I'm going to go Anthony Hill Jr. to be a true commander of the defense. And I will say this about linebackers, because I'm just going to hold it here for the time being. Linebackers are so hard to come by that are good that we've artificially deflated them to where we think, oh, it's a good linebacker, we're just not going to take him. And this is a very realistic range for linebackers. Like linebacker ones to go is in that 20 to 32 range. But it's just because so many of them fail. So I'm hoping this one's not that case. And also at 32, it's worth taking the shot. But let me know what you think about it. Of course, I know that there's some other positions you guys would probably want to target, but I really like the value there. So let me know what you think. Of course, there's some placeholders if you guys skipped around the video. So please go back and check those out. If you're like, what the hell? R. Mason Thomas, J. Michael Sturdivant. Those aren't the guys. So let me know what you think, though. Thank you so much for watching. Show the love you always do. See you later. Peace.